Hello and welcome to the Friday edition of Bit of an Animal. This will be our preview slot for the week. And this week, we're doing in-depth previews with squads on Friday nights. We'll be doing two Champions Cups game, one Challenge Cup game, Europa League, anybody? And one Women's Super League preview. Let's get stuck in. I'm joined this evening by the returning Tembi and the freshly from holiday, Jean. Good evening to the both of you.
Evening.
Evening.
Guys, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get straight stuck in. And we're going to start with the Stormers game. Stormers are taking on Toulon tomorrow, Saturday the 5th, at 4 o'clock South African time. And some pundits are picking the Stormers by 5 and others are picking Toulon. Toulon with a very stacked team. A couple of names stand out to me there. Dave Ribbons, Anton Frisch, who really wanted to play for Ireland, and then they took so long to select him that he left. I remember distinctly Anton Frisch saying, "Oh, I'd love to play for Ireland." A couple of other Brex is there, formerly of the URC of our parish. Yeah, a couple of other names standing out for me. No, that guy's at Leon, my bad. And then yeah, Timikosi, we do not have Bryce with us this evening, the resident Stormers supporter. So you're gonna have to step in for him. He is spending time with his family right now. I believe they're hunting poor people.
I didn't know he goes to Waterkloof.
Ah, now you know. Go ahead,
No,
Timiko.
it's a very interesting team. It's a stronger team than I expected. It's interesting that we're starting with Yuri instead of Sasha, which I think it's a good thing, especially with Reinach on his side. It would be a good twist to see. It seems like for me, from what I look at the squad, it looks like Dobson is probably focused more on the second half. He's probably planning on grinding them down in the second half. And I can't really wait to see Thomas Albanus play. I mean, I should have probably watched this game before because I knew he was here, but I enjoyed him when he was at Benetton more. Was it Ben? Yeah, that was Benetton.
Yeah, it was a Benetton. Albanese is Argentinian, correct, Temikosi? Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He
Yeah.
is.
Another name that stands out is Charlie Olives, Charles Olivon, Ben White of the is Scottish, basically Scotland's first choice scrum half, and then all Kyle Sinclair. So there's a lot of Dave Ribbons, by the way, South African, played for England, will be eligible to play for South Africa by the World Cup if England continue to not select him, because we still select people from overseas. So this might be a Jean Klein type situation, and it's a perfect segue. Jean, your thoughts on either of these teams?
Yeah, it's a very it's a weird set of teams. I mean, if you take a quick look at Toulon, you'd be forgiven for thinking it's a pretty stacked team. But then there's I mean, we've got headliners Nacho Brex, you've got Anton Frisch, you've got Thomas Albanos, Ben White, Charles Olivon, David Ribbons, Carl Sinclair, you've got Gross, but then it's sort of
Yeah.
like I get the idea that their bench is pretty light. They've got Gigashvili, who's a Georgian international. A lot of Georgians there. Zach Mercer seems to be their backup nine. And I mean, if you're comparing, let's just take a quick look. You're taking Scotland's number nine, Ben White. Compare that to he's going up against Kobus Reinach, who will probably play for 65 minutes, 65 to 70 minutes. He's getting replaced by Imad Khan, who's got some pace on him. Um, the 15 hat I'll tip to the Stormers with Warwick Gelant if he can back up his performance previously. Damian Willems at 14, certainly a interesting pick putting Damian Willems at 14, but we've seen what he can do there. Yuri Mattia, definitely a person who can get the most out of the back line. But Ruanel, Dan du Plessis is going to have their hands full with Nacho Brex. And then a weird, just weird loose forward pairing. I mean, Paul de Villiers we know is a steam train. He's a monster. On the other side, you've got Daimani, who's a bit more speedy, a bit more flash, not as much power. And then at the back, you've got Ivan Ruiz. But then what's really interesting is there's no real loose forward on the bench. So I mean, you're taking a bit of a gamble there. But I do think having the combination of Imad Khan, Sasha Feinberg, Ngomazulu, and Wandisile Similani, that is going to give you some backline punch in those last 40 minutes. If you can stay in the game and you looking at minute 60 and you're thinking, I need a try to get level, maybe two tries to go ahead, or I'm leading by three, um, then yeah, definitely that's where you want to bring in guys like Imad Khan, Sasha Feinberg, Wandisile, and I think the move will probably be Damian Willemse to 15, Wandisile to 14, and Khan to 9. That's how I would push it in to get maximum impact out of them because you're forcing the backline to completely reorientate themselves to the new running threats.
Yeah, we're going to see how it pans out because Dion Fourie can also cover loose forward. Marcel Tennyson, I'd like to talk about him for a second. He's a good player, unheralded. Didn't get maybe as much of the hype as Paul de Villiers, but Paul de Villiers deserves the hype because he's putting a man in the match performances. But Marcel Tennyson, a player, and I'll take a moment later in the pod to just double check. I think he's got one or two under 20 caps or is a schools caps. I think if I quickly pivot back to Toulon, I think I didn't really get a chance to quickly look over these teams that much earlier prior to this podcast, prior to hitting record. So my Nanu on the bench, I saw a video of a sort of video, a meme showing um, my Nanu's like 4 years older than current Sharks head coach JP Peterson. I think JP Peterson's 39 and my Nanu's 43. So that's a big name in their team as well. Zach Mercer's a loose forward, so that means that Toulon are going with a 6-2 split with Fred, Mathis Fred as the sort of fly off slash scrum off backup, and then Mainonu covering mostly inside center really. But they can shift some stuff around with Anton Frisch can move around as well, the guy I spoke about earlier. If I look through the team, yeah,
Based based
on
based
the
on that, right? Just
yeah.
based on that. Um, then I'm tipping it a little bit more into the hands of the Stormers because that means that their nine, Ben White, is going to have to keep up with Kobus Reinach.
Mm,
Um, and the Stormers who've been making a mess of every ruck, and if they can get the if they can get the ref to how can I say it? The ref to see the picture they're painting,
mhm.
then definitely the Stormers are they're gonna be a pain um, for Toulon. Um,
Eh,
but yeah, we'll see. It's two big teams. This is Champions Cup rugby,
Yeah,
and it's very much different when you get to the knockout phases.
yeah, there are a couple of dud fixtures in this Championship Cup in this round, like the whole Harlequins versus Sale game. I was like, I'm not excited for that game in the least. It's just another Prem game, and we know how sort of up and down and like defense is optional is the Prem. But like one thing I wanted to point out is that Nedling Vershey and Ollie Kibble, veteran Ollie Kibble, starting on the outside of Andre Hofente. Andre Hofente, who has some Springbok caps and been in and out the team. Ollie Kibble's form in terms of scrummaging, even when he went overseas, has been up and down for a little bit better for the Stormers, I will say. Stormers not having Sandy Sande or Vernon Matongo in the team is somewhat interesting. Those two players are very strong in terms of scrummaging. Nchunu's very good in the loose. Had a very good game last week. Hopefully he can push through as well. I mean, repeat that type of performance. Zach Porthen, young guy, plays somewhat better in the Springbok system, surrounded by a lot of veterans and up and down a little for the Stormers. But not only the backline players, even if the Stormers are in the lead, if they can bring Imad Khan, Sasha Feinberg, Ngoma Zulu, and Wandisile Semelani on, that would mean that if the Toulon team get desperate, they could counter very, very well. I mean, JD Schickling, extremely experienced, and interestingly, like Connor Evans, very young, starting alongside Andre Smith. So, Sibusiso, yeah, sorry. Temi Kosi, not Sibusiso. Sibusiso's not with us this evening. I think he's looking forward to the Arsenal FA Cup game. Temi Kosi, your thoughts?
Yeah, like you were saying, like I mentioned before, I think the bench is probably the decider between the two teams because from what I can see, even Tunu and Porthen, from what I've seen from last week's game, they seem like they're pretty mobile. I'm expecting the Stormers to kind of. I think it was last week where the game was tight, but the last 20 minutes kind of just opened up. I'm hoping
Yeah.
to see that kind of game, but Toulon seems like they can tough it out for the whole 80 minutes, which might be a tough time for the Stormers. Because now I think it will come down to how many mistakes do you think the Stormers can make before Toulon capitalizes and take it away from them? Because you
Mm.
know how they
Well,
play. They play a brand of it could be great, it could not be great, and I think they're probably gonna they're gonna probably need to sort out their. I don't want to say defense, but more of can we please not have chicken wing passes, doing all extra things if it's not necessary. If it's necessary, by all means, but keep the game tight.
yeah. Interesting. Bryce said something on Monday's episode of like the whole Damien Willems said 14 thing. It's like almost a double fullback type system. So we'll see how that pans out. I mean, Damien Willis can step people. He's got speed and things like that. It's definitely a change. And yeah, with missing Ben Jason Dixon, as much as I rate Achiva Daimani, I rate him more sort of like in a looser game. Say if you're playing in a team that throws the ball around and more like Benetton or that type of thing. So that on paper, and for me personally, I think the Stormers' first choice loose trio, of which two of them are there, is Evans at 8, and then Ben Jason Dixon at 7 at blindside, and then Paul de Villiers. Paul de Villiers is almost like a hybrid. He's People compare him to Heinrich Brousseau, but he's got more physicality than Heinrich Brousseau. It's almost like the evolution of Heinrich Brousseau. So yeah, that's sort of a blast from the past. All right, guys, that game kicks off
Before
at
before you move
move
on,
on.
I think
Yeah,
the only reason Daimani is there because he has that French experience. I'm pretty sure they are probably looking for him to kind of guide them on, like, hey, you've played in this country for a while. Please
yeah.
guide us in this kind of games. I think he's probably there for that because normally he's been coming off the bench and now he's starting. So maybe.
Yeah, no, that's true. And Chiva Diamani can play on the flank or at eighth man, so that's also helpful. I think that's a key factor. He played 2 seasons in well, 1.5 seasons in France. He moved over this year, and he got out of his contract a bit early. And yeah, he probably brings that sort of dynamism. I'm really looking forward to this game. It kicks off at well, it says here 4:30, South African time. Hmm. Just double check that. Why does it say 6:30 South African
Yeah,
time?
that's the Glasgow Bulls game.
Oh, that's another one. Sorry, my bad. I'm looking
Yeah,
at the bottom. This one does kick
yeah,
off
it's
at
football.
4 o'clock. Yeah, you guys are right. My bad. Yes, 4 o'clock exactly. The Glasgow Bulls game. Speaking of the Glasgow Bulls game, Jean, we move to you. It's strength versus strength. The Bulls sent absolutely no question about it. Their first, well, they've got more than enough quality players to cover match 23. So, yeah, this is not the rotation. This is the best that they can possibly go for, and they take on top of the table Yorsi Glasgow team, who are also playing just about their best team. including dropping Stormer's legend and Ike's legend, Hugh Jones. Over to you first, John.
Yeah, look, this is gonna be a tight one. I think the things that make Glasgow good are their defense, tenacity around the ruck. They don't die, they don't go away, they don't fold in matches. They'll chase you down. They've got an excellent nine, George Horn. Loose forward combination of Matt Ferguson, Rory Dodge, Jack Dempsey, all lethal. Um, and then obviously you've got Kyle Steyn, you've got Sione Tuipulotu, Ollie Smith. Um, yeah, it's quite a team. And I mean a lot of these guys have international caps. They're coming out of the Six Nations. They're about as sharp as you could wish for them. Comparing that to the Bulls, who've been on a good run. Um, I mean, we've got David Kriel at 15, who's been very, very good at 15. I personally think it's a better position for him. Cheswell Yost at 14. He's a just lightning electric player. Kanan Moody, Harold Foster, Kurtley Arendse, Pollard at 10. Pollard seems to be getting back into that physical business, a la 2019, 2018. The Pollard that used to take a good run. He scored a brilliant turnover last weekend. So he's definitely back to his old self. If he's thinking at least once a match, he is thinking he's one of the forwards. Then we know Pollard is in the right frame of mind. Embros Papier, that this man is playing. Him and Jandre Rudolph are arguably the two guys who bring the Bulls to life. They are just fantastic. And Embros Papier is sending message after message, statement after statement saying, I'm here for selection. Rassie, if you need another nine. And then obviously the return of Cameron Hanekom, who I'm hoping can impose himself on that loose trio of Glasgow. Between Hanekom, Low, Kutsia, you've got three very physical loose forwards, and I'm hoping they can keep the 6, 7, 8 of Glasgow well contained, but it's going to be a big ask. Ruan Norkia, Ruan Vermaak, nothing much there. And then in the front three is where it sort of gets interesting because we see Francois Klopper, Johan Grobler, Gerard Steenekamp, who are all formidable front rowers. But then when we go to the bench, we notice that Wilco Louw hasn't been selected. And he's got some family matters. And we do wish him well with that, and hope it all goes well. But then, yeah, we've got Marco van Staden stepping up as hooker, and that could be a blessing in disguise. Having Marco van Staden on at the same time as Marcel Low and Hanekom just provides you that extra bit of almost another loose forward to grift around and make a nuisance of himself. And then Zak Burger, Stedman Gans, Willie Leroux being the backline replacements. Willie Leroux hopefully closing out the match pretty well. We've seen some good things from him recently. But if this game comes down to the benches, I'm tipping it to the Bulls. If Glasgow grabs the Bulls by the horn and they're steering the match, it's going to be difficult to break free. Now, I do know that they are playing in Glasgow. So depending on what the weather does, the kicking game will have to be real clever because we've seen it in the past where in the first half, the Glasgow plays against the wind and their opponent sort of not knowing how to read the weather, then play kicks with the wind. So all the kicks go long, they run dead, and Glasgow just sort of sit back and they play off of that. So it's going to be real interesting to see what the weather does. And you will have to be aware. You have to, as much as you're playing a game plan and you're playing a team, you have to be aware of your environment and you have to play to that environment. And I remember shouting at the Bulls. I think it was actually the not the final they lost, it was the semi-final that they lost to Glasgow. And I was screaming my head off because they just couldn't read the wind. when the first half they were playing against the wind and they kept kicking and the ball it would literally go up 90 degrees and come down 90 degrees because the wind was so bad that the ball came back down where you kicked it. But they kept trying to kick over and over and they never adapted to that. And then second half, they were scared of kicking when they should have been kicking because the wind was at their back. So you have to play the weather conditions and they have to be aware of what those weather conditions could be. But Johan Ackerman he's a very heads up coach. And I'm sure he'll have with Pollard there, Pollard having spent time in the Northern Hemisphere, playing with France, playing with some of the English clubs in the Prem. I'm sure he'll be able to adapt to the circumstances.
Yeah, it's interesting, Tim, because we forget that this is actually the repeat of the final, different venue of 2 seasons ago, because the Bulls lost to Glasgow in the final at Loftus 2 seasons ago, and then they lost to Leinster at in Ireland 1 season ago last season. So yeah, but to the Bulls' credit, Demikosi, the Bulls have beaten Leinster in a URC quarterfinal when they were very much underdogs. So yeah, your thoughts on your Gauteng neighbors?
I'm pretty sure they've also beat Glasgow away. I'm not sure if it was like was it a semi-final? It has to be one of these years where the Bulls took the long way around where they beat Glasgow and actually came back. So it is possible. Just looking at the team from both sides, it seems like it's a speed team more the Bulls per se, because they seem like everyone in the back line, except for, I would say, Pollard is ready to run, and maybe Foster. But everyone else seems like they're going to be running around and causing all sorts of havoc. What I'm also interested to see is probably Henacom and Al Right, because I think it's going to come down, like I think Jock also mentioned, it's going to come down to kind of like the breakdown. If the Bulls can somehow recover the ball faster and stop Glasgow from like launching in every single, I'm talking about drags and scrums and everything. If they can just put pressure on them there, since Adams is also on the bench. I think Adams is not starting. Who's the Lancaster? Lancaster is not that bad. So I think if the Bulls can control like kind of like the ruck area, they can pretty much slow Glasgow from just launching out of everywhere. But yeah, I think it's gonna come down to who's gonna tire first. Because I see a lot of running out. I see a lot of, we're in year 22, we run, someone makes a mistake, we go back. If it's not a mistake, it's probably someone scoring. So I see a lot of back and forth running. It's just a matter of which team has the most discipline and the most stamina to actually last out the other one. But the Bulls should be favorites for this one. Okay, not favorites, but they should be able to win this one. It's especially because they already know Glasgow, they already played Glasgow. It's not like it's like the Stormers and Toulon where they play Toulon on sometimes and not every day, but they should be able to beat Glasgow.
Yeah, Stormers have only versed Toulon once in their history, in a competitive game anyway. All French refereeing team, TMO, assistant coaches, and head referee. In the previous game for the Stormers, is an all English refereeing team. Interestingly enough, Glasgow are also missing Jamie Dobie, who can play 9 and wing at a really high level. Josh Mackay starting at 15. We should really actually go through the whole team, but we'll do that for the Sharks team for the sake of the audio listeners. Apologies, audio listeners. Audio listeners, if you are listening though, and you accept our apology, please give us a please give us a review, 5-star rating, and yeah, share it with a friend. So Josh Mackay, soon to be Scottish qualified in November, starting at fullback. Still got, when you hear Josh Mackay do man of the match interviews or post-match interviews, he's still got a very strong New Zealand accent. And speaking of New Zealand accents, it's Kyle Steyn, former Griquas captain, grew up in Johannesburg. Stephen McDowell stepping in for Hugh Jones. If anybody's wondering, hey, why is Hugh Jones not in the team? I'm told by our Scottish correspondent, Ethan, that Hugh Jones is actually not injured or anything. He just dropped because of form. So that's super interesting. That's a big call. Siu Tupolatu, Ollie Smith more of a center than a wing. Dan Lancaster, not thought of very highly, but has been putting in solid performance. wee George Horn, highly qualified, and then Jack Dempsey, who has the honor of actually having a couple of caps for Australia as well. Rory Darge, another Scottish international, and Lion. Matt Ferguson, highly qualified player. His brother Xander Ferguson in the front row. But yeah, I'm looking across the Glasgow bench. It doesn't really exude confidence for me. Even though I don't know these players super well. I think Ash is a good player though. The weather does not look good in terms of it's going to be raining, 20% chance of rain at the time, and the wind's going to shift from 20 kilometers an hour to 36 kilometers an hour. So we'll see how that affects the game going forward. Jean, this is your team, so do you want to have the last word before we move on?
Yeah, look, I think Tim Nkosi said something very crucial there. It's about the team that tires, and I think the most important thing is it's the team that's going to tire mentally first. The team that gives up mentally first is going to be the team to lose it. And I think at this point, when it's knockout rugby, you've got your structures and everything, but you've got to play the game in front of you. And the Bulls have been really good at adapting to the game recently. So I'm hoping Bulls by 3, Bulls by 5, but it's going to be narrow. Plenty of brandy will be consumed waiting for the result.
Yeah. What we know for certain, though, is that both these games, the Stormers game and the Bulls game back to back, by the way, it's going to be a banger. It's going to be a fantastic afternoon if you can get your significant other to give you sufficient time to watch all this rugby. Speaking of rugby, and this one kicks off in 33 minutes. My Sharks send a A/B/C/D team going all the way down the depth chart to take on Connacht, having lost to Connacht earlier this season in round 6 of the URC. Also sent quite a sort of a mixed team. So if we go through the Sharks team for the audio listeners, for the sake of the audio listeners, we've got young Hakim Kunene on the bench, who's starting at 15, who's on his way to the Bulls at the end of the season. Few players in this match 23 who have already announced to be departing. Edwin van der Merwe recently joined us from the Lions on wing. Leroux Malan, recent acquisition, came through the Sharks youth team at outside center. Veteran, injured for most of the last 3 seasons. Player we poached from the Bulls, Manus Potgieter, who used to be a wing, but has bulked up and been injured for such a long time that now he often plays inside center. He was always a big guy anyway. Centurion for the Sharks, 101 caps. This will be his 102nd cap for the Sharks. Makazola Mapimpi, son of Franco Smith, Jean Smith, starting at 10. The second of 3 players who are departing for us in this match. He'll be leaving for Benetton, not the Bulls. Ross Brodier at 9, Nick Hatton at 8, young Janus Potgieter at blindside flank at 7. Tino Mavasere, very mobile, plays better in a more loose game. We'll see how he does in a more physical game. Dion Slabbert, I believe he's joined us permanently now from the Pumas. More of a rotation player, sort of maybe our 5th choice lock at this point. Eben Etzebeth, who's that? Haven't seen him in a while. Back after 12 match suspension. Interesting game to start him. And then fellow Springbok Vincent Koch at tight head prop, Eddie Swart at hooker, and Oxen Chair at loose head prop. On the bench, we've got returning Baby Bok, highly sought after blue chip prospect Ethan Bester. Lee Marvin Masabuko, sort of a journeyman. Hopefully, his form hasn't been fantastic for the Sharks since he arrived. Hopefully, it's better. Mbwanda Mbanda signed from us 3 seasons ago from the Bulls and is headed back to the Bulls at the end of this season, covering tight head. Koneral, highly thought of, built like a brick shit house, massive dude. Koneral at lock. More of a first choice player in Vincent Tuka on the bench. Keanu Everson, Baby Bok, covering scrum off. And so it's a 5-3 split. Seya Masuku covering fly off, number 22. Hopefully his form is a bit better. And surprisingly enough, that's why I say this is an A, B, C, and D team mix. First choice outside center and wing Ethan Hooker on the bench. So Okay, so my feedback from our colleague O'Kaylin Scully, nephew of Dana Scully. Is that true? You'll have to you have to research that. He tells me that Connacht are picking pretty much their first team barring injuries. So Rugby 365 has Connacht by 10. I'm gonna go Connacht by 5. I don't know what the weather's gonna be like. Let's see, Galway. That's yeah, Galway weather. Let's see what it's like on Saturday. That's night, my bad. Right now, precipitation. It's not going to be very pleasant. It's gonna in the wind. What's the wind like? Oh no. This is going into tomorrow. My bad. So the wind's pretty decent, and the wind's not so bad. So we'll see in a few minutes how this pans out, because this game's kicking off pretty soon. I
Isn't
don't.
this the open stadium?
Well, they've
They
got
have
a
a new
new
stand.
stand now, so it's closed up a little bit better. It cost them 40 million euros to build the stand and the high performance center, because people freaking out is that it's called the Dexcom because the Dexcom was sponsoring it. So all Scottish refereeing panel, interestingly enough. Yeah, I hope the Sharks win, but I think they'll probably lose by 3. I think it'll be much closer. I'm concerned about some of the performances off the bench, maybe. I am a fan of Lee Marvin Mazibuko. He was at the Stormers. He did well. He went to Racing, which always tanks your career for most players. Mbanda, I rate. He's just been a bit inconsistent. And in fairness to Mbanda, he's not necessarily gotten that many opportunities. Tino Babasere, I do rate. I think he is a good player, former UWC, University of Western Cape alumni. I want him to do well, but just not stepping up at open side flank. I will be interested to see how Jean Smith and Ross Boudier team up. They're both mobile, both exciting young players. Temigosi, you're not in the Challenge Cup or the Champions Cup, so we'll go to you first. Your neutral thoughts on Connacht versus Sharks.
Seems like I have a lot of time to watch other people's teams this weekend. But yeah, my thing, or I would say the thing I would point out, there's a lot of, especially with the Shark, I'm concerned about in terms of combinations. It seems like we just brought in a bunch of people, like the whole back line. I think this is the first time I've seen this starting lineup from the whole back line, like from the 9 up until the 15. So I'm really concerned about, are they gonna stick? You know how the Sharks are. It's either you guys do it or you don't. And now I'm kind of concerned that it seems like we're bringing in a lot of combinations in a lot of different positions that I don't think they've played well together. And it's going to be interesting to see if can they can they adapt fast enough. If you understand what I'm saying, because it seems like it's a totally new team. Yes, there's a few people that stand out, like your Etzebets and your Oxes, that seem like, yeah, that's the starting lineup for the Sharks. But I'm concerned, like most of these people, or let's say most of these combinations are. This is going to be their first time working together, or they work together off the bench and they've not had enough time. So that's my concerning figure. Like that's the whole thing that's concerning. And even when we look at the bench, you are asking yourself, like, if Smith goes off and Masuku comes on and is going to be playing with was it with Royce at 9, that's also kind of like a new combination. They haven't played those two in that position this season, so
Yeah. Actually,
I'm really concerned about. I would say just the
actually,
overall structure.
yeah, you make an excellent point because it's just a mishmash of A, B, C, and D
Yeah,
teams. So like, look, if the Sharks were going to throw this game, quote unquote, why not actually send the B team or the
yeah.
C team? Why are they sprinkling in, like, do they need Ebenezer to get some sort of game time before the URC games? Because, look, they'll more than likely lose this game, then they'll get a break. But then our next 2 games are in Europe. So it's very schizophrenic thinking from the coaching staff. Jean, we don't have a lot of time, but we'll go to you quickly. Josh Murphy's in the game, and you've got experience with him. Give us some insight as Sharks, but do our players keep our hands where the ref can see them at all times?
Between Josh Murphy and Eben Etzebeth, I'd say one hand over the face, one hand covering the jewels should keep you safe. That leaves no hands for poaching, so we'll see no turnovers in this game. Um, yeah, look, it's both are interesting teams, and I have to say, Connacht seem a bit more the favorite. I mean, looking at 12, they obviously thought they're going to push Bundy Aki up against Andre Esterhuizen, which is obvious to expect. Leroux Malan and Magnus Potgieter will have to step up. Bundy Aki is a very devastating runner. And then, yeah, you've got Josh Murphy, who, despite how we might feel about him, or whatever that incident is, um, he's pretty good at the breakdown too. I have to say the 10, Josh Ioane, he's been decent, but he's not setting anything on fire. I think where it really is going to come in is if you look at the bench, 18 Finley Beelham. Beelham is a pretty devastating player, and they've got Neil Murray and a couple of other guys on the bench. The Sharks bench, in comparison, um, is stronger in certain aspects, but also weaker in certain aspects. And the question for me is, how much time does this Sharks team have together? If they've spent time together and they've clicked before this, right, and they've gelled well, I can see the Sharks taking this. If they get on a gallop, then they can take it. If it's gonna be a slugfest, you're playing into Connacht's hands. Connacht is gonna love a slugfest.
Okay. So, John, we'll stay with you. That game kicks off in 23 minutes time. We'll stay with you for this preview as your Bulls Daisies try to go 4 seasons in a row winning the SA Women's Trophy. The trophy's name has evolved over time. It's now known as the Women's Super League 1. So the Bulls Daisies are hosting who we didn't think would be in the final. It's technically the Bulls' second team because the crossover of ownership between the Bulls and Boland is significant. It's not like the crossover of ownership between Sharks and Saracens, which is more tangential. So credit to the Bulls, to Boland Dames, for making the final because VP were favorites to make the final and face the Bulls. And I can, as having actually watched a women's VP game this season against the Sharks, that VP team's pretty good. And then Boland Damas were able to beat them in Boland, so that's at home for them. Both these teams have a smattering of Springbok women's across the team. Um, yeah, this game kicks off at 11 o'clock South African time. It is at Loftus Versfeld. I believe it's free to enter. I could be mistaken as it respect to that, but if it isn't free to enter, I'm sure it's not overly expensive. Jean, we'll go to you first for your
Tell
thoughts
them John
on.
sent you. If the
Yeah,
if the tickets are not free, tell them John
Tell
sent
Jean
you.
said.
Literally.
Yeah, just they everyone knows me. I mean,
Yeah.
you can even ask. You could just say Jean said I'm gonna speak to Andre. Um, if you get past Marshall, I'm sure you can speak to Andre. Um,
We're just
but anyway,
putting
good
out
luck with
names now.
it. No, look, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting for me. The battle at 10 years is going to be very interesting because you've got Libby Jansen van Rensburg, who's very much an established figurehead, and you could argue she's almost a Hundred Pollard of SA women's rugby. Like she's the established 10, the go-to, pretty cool under fire. Going up against Eloise Webb, who's a bit younger, um, and perhaps not as experienced, but it's going to be an interesting battle at 10, and I do hope that we see a good battle at 10, and just a competitive match. The Bulls Daisies are probably the number one the number one rated team in SA. Or women's team, and they've got the most professional support, the biggest sponsors, and the other teams are starting to catch up, and especially Boland Dames, who've just been playing pure guts rugby, like they've been playing pure guts rugby, and that also it gets you there. Let's not forget it's Guts Rugby that got us through that 2023 England semi-final. So definitely, Guts Rugby gets you there. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting battle. Another player to keep your eyes on for Boland Dames is Aseze Hele, who is the Dwayne Vermeulen of SA Women's Rugby. A devastating ball carrier. Usually takes 2 to 3 tacklers to get her to ground. And she's just a wonderful person. But yeah, definitely an interesting game. And if you're in Pretoria and you've got nothing to do, please go check it out. Um, the ladies need our support just as much as the men, and I'm really hoping that we get a good turnaround. And I'll definitely be trying to watch this game between everything else. But yeah, I'm hoping the Bulls Daisies do seal it for us. But I will not be that sad if Boelan Damas gives us an uppercut and takes the trophy.
Any thoughts on the game, Tim Gosi?
I'm gonna oppose John on this one. I'm hoping the Damas win, just because the Daisies have been winning it for like the past. I think the first person to win this tournament was like the EP Queens, and after that, it has just been the Daisies ever since. So, please, please, Poland, please beat your. What is this? Is it your? Is it like your sub? Which one is the subsidiary? Which one is the small? But yeah, please, please do something to just dismantle them. But yeah, but to look at this, the fact that the Daisies were doing so well, and now they bought another team, and they actually are able to get Boland at the same level as them. I think that's a good achievement, since I think the full takeover has been like a year or two, and to think that now the Daisies and the Dames are plus minus on the same level is a very good thing for them. It shows that whoever is owning the Bulls group is really focused on their rugby and not just on one specific team. They actually are trying to make a brand where all their teams are doing very well, and which is a good thing.
Yeah, I
But
have my
yeah,
critiques of the Bulls owners in broader sense. Even Patrice Motsepe, in terms of like, I don't know how much social impact his investment in Sundowns makes and that type of thing. But at the same time, I will acknowledge that their investment in terms of women's rugby at the Bulls and now at Boland with other subsidiary partners has been significant. And I think we should also take a moment to look. DHL Western Province, they've got reasonable investment as well. So it makes sense that they're there and thereabouts, and they only just missed out on making the final because there is no sort of like semi-final final. It goes straight to a final. So their investment's more sort of community based and sort of their through their systems and stuff. It's no outright they consortium does own them as well, but it's no outright massive investment. But they've got the talent here in Cape Town. There's a lot of women playing rugby in Cape Town, but also where there's a lot of women playing rugby and a lot of people playing rugby in general is the Eastern Province, and the state of rugby there hurts me so bad. Like I was so happy when the Southern Kings started slow in Super Rugby and then they sort of built something, but then things sort of fell apart. They even did reasonably well with the resources they did have in the Pro 14. So to see the EP Queens use this unfortunate situation where everything's against them and still in fourth behind three very well organized, very well funded teams is significant ahead of teams that one might think have less hurdles in front of them, like the Lions women's. And I know the Sharks women's system is investing in their players, but they don't quite have the talent in the team quite yet. Maybe the talent is there, it just needs a bit more refinement. The Free State women, they've got a lot of investment and sort of ways to go to get back to a more competitive team. And if we just have to look at the Bulldogs, who are in the same province as the EP Queens, they have similar issues in terms of maladministration, but they're not able to overcome them. So, you know what? The EP Queens, they didn't make the final, but they really did everyone proud. They got 3 wins. Everyone thought they would be at the bottom with their fellow Eastern Province, Eastern Cape Border Bulldogs ladies. But they finished just below Western Province, so shout out to them. Guys, that concludes our show for this evening. In 15 minutes, the Sharks hopefully beat Connacht. My thanks go to Timikosi and Jean. Until Monday in Rassi. I should put my camera on. Why is my camera not on? Let's try that again. Until Monday, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, click the notification bell. Get in the comments and prove that you made it to the end of the podcast by commenting Kim Shelele. If you're not sure how to spell that, I'm sure Robert Marawa will help you out. Until next week, or until Monday, in Rassi, we trust.
Cheers, everyone.